Good afternoon. Thanks for joining today's Rules Committee meeting. I would like to call the meeting to order from our virtual meeting reconvened from July 19th. It's great to see you all back here again. I am Leah Daughtry, and I'm proud to serve as co-chair of the Rules Committee. Thank you all for taking the time out of your busy schedules to join us again for our second meeting of the Rules Committee. We're lucky to be joined again by members from every state and territory, as well as many people who are watching us, tuning in via live stream from home. It's your efforts that will allow our convention to succeed through this historic cycle. Today, we will walk through and adopt the draft rules, as well as adopt the committee's rules of procedure, the convention agenda, and the permanent officers. We will also discuss and vote upon proposals properly submitted to be considered by the convention. Before we dive into our important business, please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. And now over to my new best friend, Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota. Governor?
Well, thank you, Bishop, and thank you for your leadership. Good afternoon, Rules Committee members. I'm Governor Tim Walz, co-chair of the Rules Committee and governor of the great state of Minnesota. Thank you all for joining us today as we create a successful convention process that brings our country and our party together. Our strength as always lies within our unity, which is why it's so inspiring to see members from every corner of this great nation on the call. It's my honor to serve alongside each and every one of you. Before we begin, I want to thank the staff who have worked tirelessly to set the stage for today's meeting. They work around the clock to ensure we're able to execute a successful process, and we all owe them a debt of gratitude. Now I'm pleased to turn it over to my friend and your friend, Democratic National Committee Chair Jamie Harrison. Chair Harrison works tirelessly to energize our party, proven leader who brings people together to fight for our shared values and win up and down the ballot. Please welcome our chair, DNC Chairman Jamie Harrison.
Thank you, Governor Walz. Thank you, Bishop Daughtry, and thank you to everyone who is here today. As the governor said, you all play a critical role in this unprecedented moment in history. You are bringing our convention to life. You're joining our party together, and you are uniting the American people behind our eventual nominee. We are so grateful for your commitment and your dedication to this process, our party, but most importantly, to our democracy. And that's no exaggeration. You know, moments like this remind us that our democracy works best when our people believe in democracy. As extreme Republicans try to chip away at the faith in our institutions, your work here proves that our democracy is strong, and our faith in our democracy is even stronger. Our process is reflective of that faith, and we are all working hard to execute this nomination with transparency, with fairness, and efficiency. Many of you have probably seen the reporting that Vice President Harris has received the express support from the majority of pledged delegates and might wonder what that means for this process. Delegates are free to support who they choose, and we are glad that they are engaging in this important moment in history. As a party, we have an obligation to design and implement a fair nomination process for delegates to officially express their preferences through a vote, resulting in eventually an official nominee of the Democratic Party who will go on to the top ballot in November. And that's exactly what you will do today. There is still work to be done, my friends, but I'm proud of everything that we have accomplished together so far. And I'm excited to continue down this road with all of you. You know, there's a saying, in the darkest night, we see the brightest stars. Thank you all for shining so bright. When we win in November, I know we will look back on this moment with pride. So thank you again, Governor, Bishop, Thank you for your leadership.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your leadership and your friendship over so many years. We are so proud of you. And now I have the pleasure of introducing Mignon Moore, Chair of the 2024 Democratic National Convention. In addition to serving as convention chair, she also serves as co-chair of the DNC Rules and Bylaws Committee. So she is well acquainted with our work. She brings decades of experience in political organizing and public policy to her role. She and her team work day in and day out to pave the way for a smooth convention. Please join me in welcoming the hardest working woman in politics, Mignon Moore.
Thank you, Bishop, and thank you, Governor Walz, and thank you both for your diligent leadership and stewardship over our party's rules, one of the most important things that you could be doing for our nation and our country right now. We understand that this is an unprecedented situation, but I'm confident that we will find a path forward together. As we've heard from Chairman Harris, and he said it many times, our party remains steadfast in upholding our commitment to an open, transparent, and fair nominating process. And you can rest assured that we have the guideposts and the expertise in place to ensure that we will do this right and in a manner that is consistent with our values as Democrats. In just 26 days, we will welcome thousands of delegates, party officials, Democratic allies to our convention in Chicago. And because of all the good work that the people on this phone will be doing today, we will see this effort to fruition when Democrats come together with a united voice to nominate our next president and vice president of the United States. One of the greatest honors of serving as convention chair is that I get to see firsthand the hard work that our team in Chicago is doing to build the stage, literally and figuratively, for Democrats to tell the story of the American people. I don't have to tell anyone on this call how important this election is. So I know with the work that you're going to do today, with all the hard work that you've done before, we will win this election in November. Again, I thank you for all that you're doing. I thank you for serving your country. I thank you for serving President Biden, who has given us a platform to run on. I thank you for making sure that this process is transparent. And I will now turn it back to Bishop Daughtry.
Thank you, Chairwoman Moore. As we proceed into our business for today, and we certainly want to echo the chair's comments in gratitude for the work of President Biden and all that he has accomplished for this country over the last 3.5 years. And we look forward to continuing that legacy with our new nominee. I think we can just stop for a minute and give some snaps and some claps for our outstanding President of the United States, Joseph R. Biden. Okay, members, we will now establish that we have a quorum. In order to do so, we need each committee member to please open the Rules Committee meeting homepage on your browser and vote yes in the voting box. Rules members will use this vote to register their presence. A quorum is constituted by a majority of the total votes present, members representing 91.75 votes. Staff will confirm that we have a quorum. The process, again, for members to use the homepage and for the results to update us will take a few moments. And so we appreciate you and thank you for your patience while the votes are being tallied. Again, to vote, open your Rules Committee meeting homepage on your browser and vote yes.
Would you be able to announce a 30-second warning?
Sure. You want me to do that now? There is 30 seconds remaining for you to cast your vote. I have been informed that we do have a quorum. Thank you very much. With that, I will now ask the DNC's parliamentarian, Helen McFadden, to review the committee's rules of procedure. These rules were provided to members and are on your voting homepage. Helen?
Thank you, Chair Daughtry. The rules are very similar to the rules of the other two standing committees that have already been used in this cycle, and they draw heavily on the rules from earlier cycles of conventions, simply modified for the virtual meeting context. Those rules were sent out to the members on the 23rd with an agenda and the draft resolutions. All of the votes that you take today will be on the same electronic platform you have just successfully used to show that a quorum is present. The debate, if the proposed rules provide that debate is limited to 8 minutes per main motion, and that is inclusive of any amendments. There is 60 seconds after the expiration of the 8 minutes to deal with anything still remaining, a series of 60-second intervals. The chairs also have discretion to change those based on the interest of the committee members. Minority reports for this committee are described in Rule 14. Because of the virtual context, it's very important that if you have an amendment, it should be provided in writing so that all members can actually see it and appreciate it. Persons who've been identified by the campaign will be given priority and recognition to speak. Any other member wishing to be heard will be heard in the order in which they appear, and they must please use the raised hand feature of Zoom. That will call attention to the fact that you wish to be recognized. So please use that when you wish to be recognized. Thank you. If there are any other questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Thank you, Helen. The chair recognizes Reverend Wayne Griffith for the purposes of making a motion to approve the committee's rules of procedure.
Yes, good afternoon. I'd like to make a motion to approve the committee's rules of procedure.
Thank you, Reverend Griffith. The chair recognizes Mohammed Missouri to second the motion.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Missouri. We will now move to discussion on the motion. Please use the raised hand function to signal to staff that you would like to be recognized. And I will ask the staff to notify the chair if a member has raised their hands. Is there any discussion? Okay. Seeing none, we will now move to a vote. Please vote on the voting homepage. If you're having trouble, please send a chat to member support. The process for members to use the homepage and for the results to update us will take a few moments, so we thank you in advance for your patience. You may cast your votes now. Members, the rules of procedure you are voting on call for the chair to provide a 15-second warning before closing the voting period. The co-chairs are extending that to a 30-second warning, so be advised that voting will now close in 30 seconds. Again, if you're having trouble, send a chat to member support.
Back to you, vote is closed and it is passed.
Okay, colleagues, voting has now closed, and I am advised that the motion has passed. So we have adopted the rules of procedure for our work today. Over to you, Governor.
Thank you, Bishop, and thank you, members. Next, we'll consider the proposed permanent rules of the National Convention. You received this document along with a summary yesterday, and they're on your voting homepage as well. These rules lay out a process to ensure we can fulfill our duties to deliver a presidential and vice presidential nominee and a successful Democratic ticket. This process will include the following: a window for candidates to file paperwork declaring their candidacy, a window for candidates to obtain and file a petition demonstrating a threshold level of delegates. If multiple candidates qualify, a short period where candidates can vie for delegates' votes. And finally, voting by delegates through a virtual roll call. The electronic system we are putting into place will allow for more than one round of voting if necessary. Before diving into the specifics on timelines and the key provisions, I'm going to be turning it over to DNC outside counsel Pat Moore to address the current legal landscape given the developments of the past few days. Pat's going to stay on with us on the call, and we'll have 2 more staff presentations. According to Robert's rules, we will then call for a motion and a second and then begin discussion. We will not be moving immediately to a vote, but must have a motion in order to facilitate the discussion. Our presenters will stay on the line to answer any questions you may have during that discussion period. Turn it over to you, Pat.
Thank you, Governor Walz. My name is Pat Moore, and I'm outside counsel to the DNC. What an honor to be with this group today. As you have heard and will hear today from my colleagues, the timing constraints on this process are just as demanding as they have been. But we strongly believe the process laid out in the draft rules can meet the goals set forth by Chair Harrison earlier in this meeting. We walked through our ballot access requirements during our meeting on Friday, but I wanted to emphasize that these legal realities have not changed in light of President Biden's withdrawal. Ballot access deadlines require certification of both the presidential and vice presidential nominees. And putting aside just for a moment the special case of Ohio, these deadlines begin on August 20th, the second day of our in-person convention. They continue in rapid succession thereafter. A virtual process will solve our practical timing problems. The virtual process can and will be open, transparent, and allow qualified candidates to compete for the votes of the convention's 4,699 delegates. And it is set up to conclude in time for us to meet our state ballot access deadlines in Ohio and everywhere else. An in-person convention simply cannot meet the ballot access certification requirements in each of the states necessary for the Democratic ticket's path to victory this fall. We now have to nominate our candidate for president, who must then select a vice presidential nominee to meet these requirements. Failure to certify both nominees in advance of each state's ballot access deadline opens us up to very real political and litigation risk, both before and after the election. Republicans will use this moment to do what they do, to sue, to try to bar us from the ballot, or to try to disqualify our voters, and to suggest that somehow the party's nominating process was improper. This threat is quite real. The RNC and affiliated dark money groups like Heritage Action have been publicly threatening legal action for weeks. And just on Monday, Speaker Mike Johnson joined their chorus, claiming we would face, quote, legal hurdles to and certain litigation about our ballot access in the state. Make no mistake, we have strong legal arguments in response to any such claims, and we're prepared to make them. But we also have opponents who are willing to make specious arguments and drag out the process in an effort to confuse voters and muddy the waters. And in some states, we will face an unfriendly judiciary. This isn't just about making sure our nominees get on the ballot either. It's also about protecting the results of the election in November. Past is precedent. Trump and Republicans have already made 100% clear that they will challenge the validity of the results if they lose on election day. Here, if we take chances with state processes and deadlines, Republican groups could make the same argument to challenge Democratic votes in the post-election setting, arguing that our nominees should never have been on the ballot in the first place. We should not and must not give them that opportunity. Our mission is too important. Given these imperatives, we're grateful to you all as members for your consideration of these rules. And as Governor Walz mentioned, we stand by to address your questions later in the meeting. Please let me now turn the floor back over to Bishop Daughtry.
Thank you so much, Pat. You know, you can't go anywhere without a lawyer, and fortunately, we have some of the best. And so thank you, Pat, for your work with us over these last couple of weeks. So now I'm going to walk through the steps in the process as laid out by the proposed rules before turning it over to Veronica Martinez and Andrew Benz for additional details. Then we will move to a motion on the rules and a discussion period for questions before the vote. Today's Rules Committee meeting is the initial step. We are here today to adopt proposed rules. While this committee, through the rules, defines the steps of the process, the DNC chair and the permanent chair of the convention, not our committee, will determine the precise timeline. Additionally, please note that the DNC's call to convention controls unless there is an issue addressed in the rules. That said, we have been in communication with both chairs of the DNC and the DNCC and understand the following to be the timeline against which they are working. After the rules are adopted and made available to the public, candidates for the office of president will have a window to declare their intent to pursue the nomination. This window will be from Thursday, July 25th to Saturday, July 27th at 6:00 p.m. Eastern Time. After filing their declaration, candidates will need to qualify to be considered for the nomination at a virtual roll call in August. The window will start after the candidate declares their intent to pursue the nomination, and it will end on Thursday, July 30th. To qualify, candidates need a baseline of support of delegates. So this means that between declaring this week and the roll call in August, the goal of any candidate is getting at least 300 delegates to sign a petition of support with no more than 50 from any one state counting for the purposes of this threshold. It is critical that nominees be able to demonstrate that they have a broad base of support from different parts of the country. The 300 threshold has been in place since at least 1996, and it represents a serious but modest level of support equal to about 6% of the convention's delegates. Our process must be flexible, and our timeline accounts for multiple scenarios. If more than one candidate qualifies for nomination, the respective chairs of the DNC and the convention have the discretion to allow a several-day period, which may not be longer than 5 days, during which qualifying candidates can make their case to the delegates and the public. In determining the length of this period, the chairs will consider the relative support reflected on the electronic nominating petitions. We expect that in this scenario, where there is more than one candidate, voting would likely begin on or around August 3rd. If only one candidate qualifies, we expect voting to begin on August 1st. This process will be completed by early August so that the nominee may vet and pick a vice presidential candidate to allow the ticket to meet state ballot access deadlines, and to ensure that convention programming can be updated to provide the best platform for the new ticket. Now I'm going to turn it over to Veronica Martinez, Director of Party Affairs and Delegate Selection for the DNC, to dive into some of the specific provisions, and also Andrew Benz, Senior Advisor to the convention, to walk us through the technology pieces. Following their presentations, we'll ask for a motion on the proposed rules, and following the motion and the second, we will have space for questions and discussion. Veronica?
Thank you so much, Bishop Daughtry. It is an honor to be here with you all again today. And as the bishop mentioned, I would just like to walk through a few provisions of these draft rules with you to make sure you have a full understanding of these as we get started. So the first is quorum. For the virtual roll call, quorum will be established by a majority of the eligible delegates receiving an electronic ballot to vote on the presidential nominee. At the convention, a quorum will be established by a majority of the delegates to the convention. The next provision we'd like to discuss is candidates qualifying for the ballot. To qualify, candidates need a baseline of support of delegates. We base this process, as Bishop Daughtry mentioned, in the longstanding qualification process already established for in-person conventions. So this means that the goal of any candidate is getting at least 300 delegates to sign a petition of support, with no more than 50 from one state counting for the purposes of this threshold. Regarding voting, in order to nominate the presidential candidate, a majority of eligible delegates must vote in favor of the nominee. So if only the pledged delegates are eligible to vote, a majority of those delegates will be required to secure the nomination. If no candidate earns a majority on the first round of voting, the top two candidates, measured by vote total, will proceed to a second and any subsequent round of voting until a majority is reached. Regarding automatic delegates, also known as superdelegates, they may sign on to and count towards the 300 signature minimum threshold for candidate nomination petitions, just like our normal process. But the votes of automatic delegates will not count on the first round of roll call voting for the presidential nominee unless and until a single candidate has demonstrated support of a majority of all convention delegates. That demonstrated support may occur through the nominating petition signatures constituting a majority of all delegates, or pledged delegate votes alone totaling a majority of all delegates. Regarding the announcement of the vice president and the timing there, the process is designed to select the presidential nominee and to allow the presidential nominee to choose the vice presidential nominee in advance of the August 7th Ohio certification deadline. The process is straightforward, and it mirrors the process used in 2020. Only the presidential nominee may nominate a vice presidential candidate. Once the presidential nominee has done so, the convention chair will then declare that the candidate is to be the vice presidential nominee of the Democratic Party. We will then have a ceremonial vote at the Chicago Convention to celebrate and affirm the nomination. Regarding the in-person convention, it will begin on August 19th at the United Center in Chicago. There will be a vote on the party platform, a celebratory and ceremonial vote to recognize the nominees, which will include a state-by-state roll call for the presidential nominee. The convention chair will recognize the new Democratic ticket for acceptance speeches. Those were the main provisions we wanted to cover with you, but we know that you all also might have some questions about the technological back end of this. And so I would love to now turn it over to Andrew Benz to walk us through some of those technical pieces. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Veronica. Once the rules are adopted by this committee, and as soon as tomorrow, the window will be open for declared candidates to obtain and file a petition demonstrating a threshold level of support from delegates. As mentioned earlier, candidates will need to attain signatures of at least 300 delegates, of which no more than 50 can be from a single state. These signatures will be obtained through an electronic collection system that largely mirrors the virtual roll call vote collection process used successfully and securely in 2020. Each delegate will receive a personalized nominating petition form in their registered email inbox, which they will then have an option to fill out and return to their delegation's email inbox to be verified and tallied. Delegates will receive an email confirming their receipt, form response, and tally confirmation of their submission. Each nominating petition is customized and watermarked to its recipient to establish the authenticity and accuracy of each petition. Delegates will receive clear instructions on how to fill out and submit a nominating petition at the outset of the nominating petition phase, with technical support information available to delegates for challenges in completing or filling out forms. Completion reporting will be updated multiple times a day and made available to campaigns seeking signatures to the nomination. With regards to the virtual roll call, the technical process of conducting a virtual roll call will largely reflect the process used successfully in 2020. At the outset of voting, delegates will receive a personalized virtual roll call voting form in their registered email inbox to fill out and return to their delegation's email inbox to be verified and tallied. Similar to the virtual nominating petition procedure, delegates will receive an email confirming the receipt, form response, and tally confirmation of their submission, and each roll call form is customized and watermarked to its recipient to help prove authenticity and accuracy of each vote. Delegates will receive clear instructions on this process at its outset. In addition, an outbound phone-based campaign to delegates will be used to drive awareness of the voting period and process, and phone hotlines will be staffed to provide technical support to delegates. In scenarios where no candidate achieves a majority of delegates' votes, the system will allow for as many additional rounds of voting as are necessary to declare a winner. Completion reporting will be updated multiple times a day and made available to campaigns throughout the voting process. In order to facilitate campaign and delegate communication, the DNC will provide a candidate directory to delegates. The directory will list candidates' names, websites, and contact email for delegates to opt into communications from them. Once delegates have indicated that they want to hear from a candidate, the candidate will receive the delegate's contact information. And with that, Governor Walz, I'll hand it back over to you.
Well, thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Veronica. Thank you, Bishop Daughtry. We're going to take questions during our discussion phase, which we will begin in just one moment. First, I want to flag that we have a chair's amendment. Correct any technical language. You can view the chair's amendment on the platform homepage as it was sent earlier today. The chair would now like to recognize Raj Kumar Singh for the purpose of making a motion to approve the chair's amendments.
Mr. Chair, I move to introduce the amendment.
The chair now recognizes Jordan Johnson, who will second the motion.
Mr. Chair, I second that motion.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the chair's amendment? I will ask the staff to advise if there are any hands up. Seeing none? Seeing none. No further discussion. I'll call a vote to approve the chair's amendment.
Governor, Mayor
apologize.
Woodfin has his hand up in the chat.
Oh, thank you, Bishop. Mayor, you're recognized. I apologize.
Bishop, I apologize. It was more so open for when open for discussion unless discussion is about to close. I'm
Very
fine
good.
with the amendment.
No worries. Thank you very much. This is not a vote on the rules themselves, but merely a vote to incorporate these technical changes before we discuss the document as a whole. Please use the Platform Committee homepage on your browser to vote on the chair's amendment. If you're having any trouble, please send a chat to member support. We will give a 30-second notification. Thirty seconds till voting closes. The motions have been adopted and relevant sections will be amended to reflect the changes. Before I further on, I see several hands up. Bishop Daughtry, if the team sees the hands up.
Chair, I see Tazeen Ahmed.
You are recognized.
Thank you. I think it's resolved. When I was trying to vote, it just kept circling and it didn't timed out. So I was worried that my vote wasn't registered. And right now I see the green light, but it wasn't there earlier. So I think it's resolved. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. I see two more hands up.
Chair, seeing Dan Thomas Cummins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dan Thomas Cummins from Minnesota. I wanted just to raise a point of order, I suppose, or a point of parliamentary inquiry about the consideration of that previous amendment. Do we not need to have the main motion before us before adopting an amendment to it? And I would certainly welcome the parliamentarians' advice on that.
Here we go. Let them spotlight him. You're unmuted, Phyllis. You're unmuted.
I think we got it. Sorry, we have too many devices open. The gentleman is correct that you need to have the main motion for the adoption of the rules themselves before you provide the chair's amendment.
Ms. McFadden, I would ask then, what is the procedure to correct the motion?
I would suggest that if there is no objection from the members, that the record reflects that the proposed rules are before the members and that they have already adopted the first amendment to those rules. The chair could rule that way because we opened discussion on the rules quite some time ago without an actual motion. The discussion on the rules was opened at 2:23, Mr. Chair, and it is now 2:46. So for some time, the main motion, which is the adoption of the rules as published to the committee yesterday, has been under discussion. Secondarily, I would propose that you make that ruling because the delegate, Mr. Thomas Simmons, does not appear to have been confused as to what he was doing. There is no confusion among the voting members of the committee as to what they are doing. And they still have further opportunity to make additional amendments. So that would be my proposal in response to the point of order, which is technically well taken.
Thank you, Madam Parliamentarian. I would turn it back to Dan if that satisfies where we're at, and to any members for discussion on hearing no objection that we adopt the amendment as stated.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Correct. I don't have any objection. I thank the parliamentarian for her view and welcome that path forward. I would also, within that same request, ask that I believe there have been a couple of delegates who were lined up to make the motion for the adoption of the permanent rules and second that motion, that their names be entered into the record as having made that motion and second, so that they can be included in the proceedings accurately.
Hearing no objection, so ruled. And thank you for that Minnesota wisdom. I'm grateful for that. Hearing nothing, now we have an opportunity on the overview of the rules and the subsequent process. We'll accept a motion to approve the rules and begin discussion. Bishop Daughtry, myself, Pat, Veronica, and Andrew will be here to answer any questions that may come up during this period. We will keep the discussion period open and answer every question that is put forward. We will accept a motion and a second to approve the rules as amended, which will begin discussion in our second section. I would now recognize Lieutenant Governor Kounalakis of the great state of California for a motion.
Thank you very much, Governor Walz, for the recognition. And it is an honor to serve on this committee with you, with Bishop Leah Daughtry, and with all of the members here today. And I want to recognize the incredible work that has gone into the effort to get us here today. Fellow committee members, the rules we are about to consider will accomplish our committee's shared goal of providing our delegates and our party with an open, fair, and secure nominating process that will deliver a winning ticket in advance of all applicable ballot access deadlines. As was discussed during our last Rules Committee meeting and has been outlined again today, the DNC determined that a virtual roll call is the safest way to ensure that our Democratic candidates will be certain to appear on the ballot in all 50 states. This will guarantee that no voter in America is deprived of the opportunity to cast their vote for their preferred candidate. With these rules, we will have a successful and transparent nomination process. Therefore, I move to adopt the permanent procedural rules of the 2024 Democratic National Convention as amended.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. Lieutenant Governor has moved adoption of the permanent rules of the convention. The chair would now recognize Shira Truitt for a motion to second.
I second that motion.
The motion is moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? Please use the raised hand function and staff will advise the chair. Seeing hands up, let's get us in order.
Chair, I see Randall Woodfin.
You are recognized.
Governor, can you hear me?
We sure can. You're recognized, Ms. Woodson.
Yeah, I will be very quick by just simply saying to our Rule Committee members, wanting everyone to remember and acknowledge earlier this year, the Republican-controlled state legislators in Ohio had to say that the presidential nominee had to be nominated by August 7th in order to appear on the ballot. I think you all would agree that this was purposely done in order to create obstacles for Democrats in the state. I believe it's upon us to not allow such a thing, which would disenfranchise millions of Ohio voters. So therefore, I believe a virtual roll call is the safest approach because it ensures ballot access in that state and other states, and that it guarantees a win for us in November. And also, as the lawyer said, also avoids potential risks if there's a delay in the process. So I thought that was worth noting. In honor to be among you all today.
Thank you, Mayor.
Chair, I see Joshua Trupin.
You are recognized.
Thank you, Governor. So ballot access is, of course, the paramount concern for the work that we're doing here today. But we've known that these state deadlines have been around for years in advance. Why was the in-person convention planned in seeming violation of these state laws? And won't these specious legal challenges from Republicans be made no matter what we end up doing here?
I think, Pat, maybe our attorneys take that one.
Thank you, Governor. And happy to address that. And I think there are a couple of parts to the answer. The first is, unfortunately, 2020 demonstrated that as far as election litigation is concerned, we are in a new world. So there is a long-standing practice of conventions of both parties happening the third week in August, as this convention was planned for. And there is an equally long-standing practice of states accommodating that schedule, be it by amending state law or by accepting provisional certifications from the parties before the formal convention occurs. Those practices, as we saw, as Mayor Woodfin noted in Ohio, unfortunately have dissipated. and the legal risk attendant to things like provisional certifications has increased. Now, will we face litigation no matter what? I think that's safe to say. We certainly have seen that threatened. We've seen it threatened by the Republican Party. We've seen it threatened by aligned groups. We've seen Speaker Johnson reference it. And of course, we're already facing dozens of lawsuits this cycle involving the RNC. But accepting that we will face that litigation does not mean that we are powerless to strengthen our position in opposition to that litigation. And that is why the choice and the pathway before you has been recommended by the party, to make sure that we are as well protected as possible, to make sure that every voter in the country interested in casting a ballot for the Democratic ticket will in fact have the opportunity to do so. Again, litigation may come, it will be defended. We expect to be successful, but we want to be defending it from the strongest possible posture.
If I can just add anecdotally, I would say that if you recall, the Republican convention in 2020, when Donald Trump was the incumbent, was held in September. So it's been pretty standard, as Pat has said, for state legislators to accommodate whatever the convention dates are for whatever party it is. So this is a highly unusual, highly politicized decision that states have made to not honor that time-worn tradition.
Thank you, Bishop. Next questions?
Chair, I see Kelly Robinson.
You are recognized.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to express a note of gratitude. The last few days have offered so many feelings to our constituents, not least among them being questions and confusion a little bit about the path forward. But I have to say, I am so confident in this group and in being on the Rules Committee, the way that you've provided transparency and clarity and openness. It gives me a tremendous amount of confidence in the party, in our path forward, and ensuring that we can get back to the work of electing the next president of the United States. So thank you.
Thank you. Next question.
Chair, I see Travis Sheave.
You are recognized.
Thank you, Governor, and thank you, Bishop Daughtry. I want to start off by saying that I support a roll call wholeheartedly being done virtually before the convention, but I do have one point of clarification because I thought I heard two different versions. I know it's an unlikely event that we will need more than one balloting in this process, but in the event that we do, I heard someone say that the top two vote getters will go on to the next round, but then I also heard someone else say we will vote as many times as we need to. But if there are only two candidates in that second round of voting, we will only need that one runoff round. So is it multiple rounds of voting, or is it a runoff style election where just the top two advance in the second? Thank you.
Pat, I think that might be your forte.
Appreciate that, Governor, and appreciate the opportunity to address this. As you'll see in the rules, there are pathways that are created and then there are fail-safes. So that is a correct interpretation. There will be one ballot where pledged delegates, at least in the first instance, are afforded the opportunity to vote on the would-be presidential nominee. If a second ballot is needed, the top two progress to that ballot. A majority of those eligible to vote is required to nominate the president. So it is at least conceivable, even though it is a top two process, for there not to be a majority after that point in time, in which case a third ballot would be necessary. Now, the possibility of that is so remote as to almost be beyond mention, but we have to design the rules to accommodate for it in the rare case that it may happen.
Thank you. Next question.
Chair, I see Charlie Baker.
You are recognized.
Sorry, I had to get unmuted. This is more of a question for Pat, but I think my view is that I think it's fair to say that we have done the absolute limited amount of things we need to do to basically mirror what would happen in person in this virtual roll call, given the risks of potential action by the Republicans in various states. Is that the view of council?
Pat?
Thank you, Governor, and thank you, Charlie. Yes, it is. We had two guiding lights in this process to make sure that it is fair, open, and transparent, consistent with longstanding party practice. And we followed that guiding light. And secondly, to adhere to precedent to the greatest extent possible. And so we've done that in terms of structuring the virtual roll call. We've structured it as close as can be to how it would be in person. And we also have a precedential model for that, which is the 2020 model for some virtual component. And we've incorporated those processes as well. So we are confident that this is a process that is open, fair, and transparent, meets with precedent, and accordingly will be very defensible against any legal challenge.
Thank you. Next question.
Chair, I see Dan Santin.
You are recognized.
Chair, I applaud the work of the Standing Rules Committee for creating such a complete process in such a short time period since this requirement for the virtual process was announced. It's really honestly amazing. But one thing that I had a concern about is it does not expressly address, but it might be. What mechanism will be provided for delegation chairs to monitor that all of the delegates of their state have voted? For context, I need to ensure all votes in my state were tabulated to the point of having to engage hotel staff back in 2016 to contact a delegate to make sure they voted. With voting by email and having the phone campaign, I believe will be helpful. How will a delegation chair be able to keep their own tally?
We can, I think I will say that we can work with the Secretary's office, Jason Ray and his team, along with Party Affairs, to develop the process by which we can ensure that every delegate who wants to vote, intends to vote, is voting. That's a function of the Secretary's office, but we'll be happy to work with you to design a process that meets your needs and would meet the needs of other state chairs.
Thank you, Bishop. Next question.
Chair, I see Representative June Speakman.
You are recognized.
Thank you, Governor. I have a couple of questions from my delegation with whom I will be meeting later this evening. One is, many of us have signed pledges to President Biden. What's the nature of that pledge now? And then the second is, when Andrew was talking, he said all the delegates will receive a form. So that means so we already know Vice President Harris is in the race. If several other people get in, they will all get forms, which they can then mail to the delegates to seek their signatures. Is that how that process works? So first, and then second, the nature of the forms that we will be receiving to sign. Thank you.
Andrew, are you going to take that one?
I think Pat is going to speak to the first question.
Great.
Thank you. Also, addressing the first question in terms of the pledge delegate structure, the pledge delegate language and the call to the convention, which is incorporated in the rules before you, allow delegates to vote their conscience. Having President Biden having stepped aside, delegates are free to choose any qualified candidate through this process and cast their ballot for that qualified candidate. Let me turn either to Veronica or Andrew on the form question.
Sorry about that pause there. In terms of the form, that's a great question, Representative. All delegates will actually receive their nomination form. So all delegates will receive a nomination form to their email. They will be able to fill in the name of a qualified candidate to that form. And so they will have the opportunity to do that for any candidate of their choosing, so long as they're qualified. Delegates will also have access to a candidate directory, which will provide a list of the candidates who have thrown their statement of intent into the ring. So delegates will be able to see who is eligible for, oh, hello, sorry about that. Hi, who is eligible for nomination and be able to self-select for themselves. So each delegate will receive the form rather than candidates sending them out themselves, if that's helpful. Thank you.
And just to put a final point on it, in terms of the rules that we are discussing, remember that there is a period of time where interested parties have to file their declaration of candidacy and then proceed to, so no delegate will get a ballot until we know who's a candidate. And they have that time period in which they have to notify the DNC that they are in fact a candidate for the office that we are voting on.
Thank you. Next question.
Chair, I see Natalie Oya.
You are recognized.
Thank you, Natalie Argola Marie. You know, I just really want to take a moment here to acknowledge this gift that technology has given us, right? Of what we went through, that my generation certainly changed in the way that we work, and the fact that we have this very valuable tool to do this vote virtually, which we would have never had in any other circumstance had we not just gone through what we went through in the last few years. So, you know, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge that moving forward with the virtual call really is our best option. As we have not only the Ohio deadline, but I also just realized, and we have the deadline of the 20th, which, as you said, will be in the middle of convention, doing everything else that we do. So I just want to take a moment, you know, to acknowledge and support the fact that this is the best path forward, not only because we have this tool at our disposal, but also because we know what we're facing on the other side, right? So anything that we can do to leverage the tools that we have in front of us to mitigate the risk of what we know we're facing in terms of the opposition is just something that I really, really want us not only to support, but to champion, because things are changing. The way that we do party business is going to continue to change. So I really hope that we continue to model and champion the best path forward that will ensure that our nominees have access to the ballot.
Thank you. Next question.
Chair, I see Jacob Wazoki.
You are recognized.
Thank you, Governor Walz and Bishop Daughtry. I would like to first thank the Democratic Party for including young voices like myself, 20 years old, in these important decisions, and for also including the voices of the millions of U.S. voters who live overseas in the Democratic Party nominating processes through the inclusion of Democrats abroad as one of 57 state parties, something that our opposing party notably does not do. That being said, I would like to note that Section C.6, subsection CI of the proposed rules refers to, quote, the states with the District of Columbia and Puerto Rico and the territories, end quote. And Section T of the proposed rule states that, quote, the term territories shall refer to American Samoa, Democrats abroad, Guam, the Northern Mariana Islands, and the Virgin Islands in these rules, end quote. Given that Democrats abroad is A, not a territory of the United States, and B, represents the millions of U.S. voters who live overseas and are the margin of victory for Democrats in close races up and down the ballot, I urge the authors of future official Democratic Party documents and rules to use more inclusive language that recognizes Democrats abroad instead of treating its unique role in this party as a procedural afterthought. Thank you.
So noted. Next question.
Chair, I see Senator Kevin Thomas.
Senator, you're recognized.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. It's an actual honor to be on this Rules Committee. It's my first time being on this, and I just want to say a big thank you to Bishop Daughtry, Governor Walz, the chair, the staff that works on these rules behind the scenes to make all of us look good. And I am just so proud of us as a party coming together. We know how hard the other side tries to divide us, but the last couple of days has shown how much we have come together, standing united to get something done. And this is huge. And I am so proud that we will all be together at the convention in Chicago and nominate the first South Asian for president. And I vote the affirmative when it comes to it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Senator. Next question.
Chair, I see Carissa Snedeker.
You are recognized.
Hi, thank you. Bishop Daughtry, I am a rules nerd just like you. So I totally jumped into the call And so I want to thank the committee for doing all this work. I serve on state rules and bylaws in Nevada, and when they threw me on this committee, I was like, yoo-hoo! So I just, but I want to thank you so much for all of this. I think my question's actually been answered, which was, if state delegations have already pledged their support to Kamala Harris, are they going to also be receiving these forms individually? And it sounds like they are, correct? Is that correct? All right.
That is correct.
Because I want to be able to go back to our delegation and give them the proper information on this. But thank you so much for all the work you've done. This follows exactly what's in the call, and we're doing it virtually, and I am completely in support of this. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question.
Chair, I see Colleen Younger.
You are recognized.
Everyone, I'm so excited to be here. My first time. I'm Colleen Younger, Vice Chair of Kentucky Democrats, the great state of Kentucky, and our great governor, Andy Beshear. I wanted to speak very quickly in favor of the virtual roll call and being so important to ensure our nominees will be on the ballot in all 50 states. Groups like the Heritage Foundation are waiting and planning lawsuits to keep us off ballots. We cannot leave any stone unturned that would give them any opportunity to exploit litigation and leave us off of ballots. Our roll call is a democratic process that allows all delegates to be heard. There will still be an in-person roll call vote at the convention, but the virtual roll call, excuse me, I'm turning my notes. The virtual roll call is imperative to ensure that every American voter can vote for their preferred candidate. We should not risk litigation from Republicans when we have viable solution in the roll call vote. Thank you.
Staff, I still see a few hands up. Can we identify next in the queue?
Chair, I see Michael Kelso.
You are recognized, Michael.
Hi, Michelle.
My apologies, Michelle.
It's okay. I actually have two questions. One is more of a clarification. I've noticed in paragraph E1 subsection F on that is in reference to the virtual roll call, there is a specific mention of replacement of delegates prior to a ballot cast. I don't see that mentioned as such in the in-person voting. There is a mention of if a delegate is not present. Is that does that mean that if something were to happen, unfortunately, to a delegate at the convention, there is no permanent replacement, or is that not anticipated that there might be a need for a permanent replacement, or am I just reading too much into that?
Staff, you want to help with that?
Of course, Governor. Veronica, do you want this or would you like me to take it?
Yes, I'm happy to. Helen and I are just pulling up the proposed rules right here because I think we do have the case covered for if a delegate needs to be replaced by an alternate for the in-person convention. That is based heavily off of our previous temporary rules and our often used permanent rules. And so if something were to happen to a delegate at convention, we do have a process for filling an alternate here. B1F.
Which you
So we're just moving to the exact
Thank you.
section here. Thank you.
Next question.
Chair, I see Adam Summers.
You are recognized. Adam, I think we have you on mute.
Oh, can you hear me?
Maybe it's me.
Can you hear me?
I sure can. Please
Okay,
proceed.
Sorry about that. Appreciate it. Governor Walz, Bishop Daughtry, thank you for the opportunity to serve on the committee and to ask a quick question. I'm, of course, very supportive of the virtual roll call process. While reviewing the rules, I see voting won't open until August 1st. And then, of course, the deadline to file in Ohio is August 7th. And then from what I understand from our last meeting, the process, I mean, of course, it's to do one state, but if there's a logistical hurdle of, in getting a notarized letter, and I don't see in the rules anywhere saying balloting must conclude by X date. I think it gives the secretary a lot of discretion to kind of close balloting. And I guess I'm just seeing, is everybody like, does there seem to be a need for a deadline, or is it kind of comfortable just having that discretion be there and get it done in advance in the off chance that there's multiple rounds of balloting needed?
Pat, would you like to help, or?
I would be glad to, Governor, and thanks so much for the question. So as we talked about in another setting, the goal of these rules is to make the process work such that a presidential and vice presidential nominee will be certified on or before August 7th. As we noted in earlier discussion, there is a need to to provide for fail-safe options. So if for some reason or another, the process did not work on that timeline, which again, we firmly intend and expect that it will, the rules provide the chair of the DNC and the chair of the convention working together may extend the process. Obviously, there are ballot access deadlines. Those will be front of mind. Everything that the party is doing, the convention is doing, and we expect the ultimate presidential nominee will be doing, will be with those deadlines in mind. But setting them in stone in the rules it doesn't give us the flexibility we need in the case of an unforeseen event, which again, we do not expect in any way. But should there be one, the chairs have the discretion. We need not reconvene the committee to give them that discretion.
Thank you, Pat. Next question.
Chair, I see Mo Siegel.
You are recognized.
Thank you. I would like to say ditto to Senator Kevin Thomas's comments. My perception is that we must have the vote by August 7th, because not only is it winner take all in Ohio, but if we don't do it, Sherrod Brown's position is at risk. Could you speak to that, please?
Pat, I'm not sure, or Bishop Daughtry, our goal is to have our candidate on every single ballot in every single state and territory.
Yeah, that's
Sorry,
exactly.
Bishop, go ahead.
It would not necessarily jeopardize Sherrod Brown's place on the ballot. However, to the extent that enthusiasm for for the presidential nominee helps to drive turnout, helps to drive participation, then we certainly want to make sure that we do everything we can to give Sherrod some additional oomph and firepower from the voters on election by having our nominee on the ballot.
Thank you. Next question.
Chair, I see Natalie Tennant.
You are recognized.
Thank you very much, Governor and Bishop. I represent West Virginia, and we are proud that we have already unanimously endorsed Vice President Harris. But as we were discussing, there was some concern, about the optics and what does it look like if we say that we have a virtual roll call. Well, it then just dawned on me with previous voting in conventions where you just sign a piece of paper and people don't necessarily see, only your own state folks. So I am more comfortable with this because, as you said, you'll still have a ceremony where we get to stand up and say how proud and how great West Virginia is for casting its delegates. And it led me to the next question that I think kind of goes with the other person who asked about the chairs of their state delegation being able to see if their delegates voted. How will other delegates be able to see how other delegates voted? I think that will relieve or alleviate some concern that it's not an open process when indeed we know it is.
Thank you. Veronica, that might be you.
That's great. As you are kind of touching on here, there are no secret ballots within the Democratic Party. And so we can certainly share the full vote afterwards. We will be sharing with candidates throughout the process an update on the states and individuals who have voted, so they're aware and feel everything is fair in that way. But you can certainly request the full vote afterwards, absolutely.
Thank you. Next question.
Chair, I see Megan Kehoe Green.
You are recognized.
Hello, thank you. I understand all of the legal concerns that have been expressed, but I do want to express the hope, or my hope, that the virtual vote does not become a norm for future national conventions. The convention is an important moment, not just for the delegates who have paid for and made time for this important role of voting at the convention, but for the full process of the democratic, full openness of the democratic process. Virtual voting removes some of the democratic discourse, access to delegates and candidates, and some of that energy and campaign momentum of the convention. So perhaps in future years, we will have earlier conventions to avoid these issues. I'm just asking that the virtual vote does not become a permanent expectation. Thank you.
So noted. Next question.
Chair, I see Eleanor Sobel.
You are recognized.
They keep putting their hands up.
Myself.
Eleanor, you are recognized.
Thank you very much. This is my first time. I'm a term limited senator from Florida. And first I want to thank the committee, the leadership and your staff for being so helpful. And especially for being so transparent and I believe honest. Vice President Harris has secured 2,500 votes from delegates. My first question is, how many delegates are needed to secure the nomination? I believe she has passed the number. Is that correct?
That is correct, Bishop. Does someone on our team have the exact number as of today?
Veronica can give us the exact number. I would simply note that we need delegates to sign the official pledge form for it to be an actual vote. What we have now, we've seen the numbers, it is fantastic, but these are news reports. So we need the actual delegate vote like you would do at convention and sign something for it to be an actual vote that the secretary's office can tally. Veronica, what's the magic number?
Yes, Bishop, that's exactly right. The win number is 1,976 on the first presidential ballot. The total number for all delegates eligible to vote, so pledged and automatic delegates, is 2,351.
Thank you, Veronica. Next question.
Chair, I see Jonelle Coswell.
You are recognized.
Hello, and greetings from the great state of North Carolina. And thank you, co-chairs Daughtry and Governor Walz for hosting the meeting. And of course, North Carolina is proud to be one of the first states to fully have our delegation fully endorse Vice President Kamala Harris. Just two quick things. With the changing of the rules to do everything online, of course, I'm in 100% support of this. And just wondering about the symbolic roll call that will take place at the convention in person. And also since we are, doing the delegation votes for the nominee online, would it be prudent to do all of the voting online and virtual before the convention and then have the symbolic roll call for platform and credentials and everything else? Just a thought. Thank you.
I don't want to step on Chairwoman Moore's programming, but there are still other things that need to be voted on, the platform, for example, et cetera. And the intent of doing that in person is so that delegates can hear the platform, be able to discuss the platform, cast their votes, and not to have to send multiple ballots virtually about the nomination of the selection of the nominee and these other procedural things that we need to take care of. So we thought that it was the better part of wisdom to get the nomination secured, and then when we come together to adopt our platform, and obviously the adoption of our platform and other procedural business has nothing to do with whether our nominee gets on the ballot or not, which is our driving factor here in terms of having the roll call virtually and early.
Thank you. I see 7 in the queue yet. Next question.
Chair, I see Micah Majubian.
You are recognized.
Hey there, my name is Micah. I'm from Pennsylvania, and I appreciate the work of Bishop and Governor and all the staff. And I was about to lower my hand because it was similar to the last question. It's a technical thing I'm concerned about. I was wondering, after our committee adopts these rules, and I wholeheartedly support the rules and look forward to doing that today, will the full body be voting on the rules report as well? Because when I read section E1, the first sentence says in the remote voting that we will be voting for presidential nominees and any minority report of the Rules and Credentials Committee. And then when I look in section 2, under floor voting, it makes no mention of adopting the rules report. So I was wondering if and when that might happen.
Staff, does someone, if we understood the question correctly, does someone have an answer for that?
Yes, Governor, and thank you for the invitation. And Micah, thank you for the question. To address it directly, the call was amended by a vote of the DNC on June 20th to give this committee the authority on behalf of the convention as a whole to adopt the rules of the convention. So once this committee does in fact adopt the rules, those rules then will govern the convention. A separate vote on that issue is not needed.
Thank you for the clarification, Pat. Next question.
Chair, I see Rita Harris.
You are recognized.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Rita Harris. I'm from Central Florida, and I have a quick question. If we cannot attend the convention, I have that's actually our primary date, and this is a deciding primary for me. It is a re-election primary for me, and so therefore I wouldn't be unable to be in Chicago. If I can do everything virtually and I don't have to be there, I am honored to continue this work. But if I'm not going to be able to be there, I want to make sure that we have time to find an alternate.
Governor, I'd be happy to jump in here. This is Veronica. To your question, the Rules Committee's work will be complete before we convene in person in Chicago. I will say, though, standing committee members are more than welcome to attend. You all have put in a lot of hard work here, and we want to make sure you see the fruits of those labors in person at our event, and it's going to be a really great event to be at. And so you will receive guest seating for each session of the convention proceedings, and so we hope to see you there. But if you're not able to make it, your job is done through this committee today.
Thank you. Next question.
Chair, I see Tazeen Ahmed.
You are recognized.
Thank you. And thank you, Governor and Bishop. The work you've been doing is incredible and your leadership is appreciated. I just want to also thank the staff. They've been phenomenal. I've had people reach out to me and check on everything. So thank you all for all of the work you're doing. The question I have, it's more of sort of a observation and trying to figure out. So it's a very compressed time for if somebody decides to put their name in as to be, sort of a candidate. I was just curious, just to make sure that we have that continued transparency and people feel comfortable that we're not sort of just forcing one decision one way. Is there a process in place that if somebody does come forward, which is probably highly unlikely, but in the event that somebody does, is there a way for them to have access to contact information for the delegates? How do they, sort of, because you've got this very, very narrow window to get it done, I don't see that that's in here, any provision for that. And I'm just curious about if there is something in place.
Bishop Daughtry, you spoke a little bit to that, or maybe Veronica.
Sure, I'm happy to jump in here as helpful. We do have the candidate directory. And so in order to facilitate that communication between campaigns and delegates, we are providing you all with a candidate directory, and that will provide you with an opportunity to opt in to communicate with the candidates themselves. Once you've indicated that you would like to hear from a candidate, the candidate will receive your contact information. And also we are asking that candidates provide their own contact email so that way you can reach out to them proactively as well.
Thank you, Veronica. Next question.
Chair, I see Michaela Kelso.
You are recognized.
Yes, thank you for letting me ask my second question. I've noticed that I'm still going back into the remote voting section. We have several areas where deadlines have been specified as someone who lives in a very remote area with intermittent issues with internet access. I have a concern regarding accessibility. If we're giving only 36 hours of advance notice that a ballot will be arriving, but we won't even know until that ballot arrives how much time we have to allow us to vote on the ballot, this might make it difficult for some people to actually vote their ballot. I live. If it wasn't for Elon Musk, I wouldn't have good internet, and I hate to say that, but and I know we have so many people in very rural areas, and I want to make sure they have the proper accessibility to their ballots. Is there a way to send the timeline of you will have 4 hours to vote this ballot, or 6 hours, or something like that, already with the notice of when the ballot would be sent?
Veronica or Andrew?
Yes, sir. I'm happy to take this. As you noted, we are trying to give as much notice as possible. I know it is a compressed timeline, and that isn't particularly ideal, but it is important for all of the reasons expressed earlier. While we are working to provide that 36 and would love to provide more as possible, and Bishop Daughtry laid out some of the reasons the timeline is so flexible once we have a sense of candidates and that type of thing. I will note that we also have a phone option for the nomination ballot. And so we'll work with every individual to make sure you have every opportunity possible to cast your ballot over through email or through the phone as well.
Thank you, Veronica. Next question.
Chair, I see Dan Santon.
You are recognized.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to address a little earlier. While I appreciate the earlier promotion, Bishop Daughtry, I'm just an at-large delegate from Washington as well as a member of this committee, and maybe too much of a busybody checking on my fellow delegates, but not a state chair. That would be my favorite chair, Shasti Conrad. My question is, and it probably dovetails with my fellow Washingtonian, Michelle, will there be a little bit more of a technical explanation on this call of how electronic voting will occur at this meeting? I've had some internet issues, and I hope I didn't miss a discussion on how electronic signatures will work. Will it be DocuSign or some other technical solution? Will there be perhaps advanced technical support for our less technically savvy delegates?
Thank you for the question. Yeah, go ahead, team. Who's ready to take that one?
I can take that. Nominating petitions and ballots will be sent out individually to delegates. They will sign them with their name. Their typed name will be accepted as their quote electronic signature, and then those are returned back to the system. And so that is how we are handling and making sure that it is simple and safe and secure for those ballots.
Thank you. We have 3 final questions in the queue. Let's go ahead and get those.
Chair, I see Eleanor Sobel.
You are recognized.
So, thank you again for allowing me round two. My first question, I have two questions. The policy committee, do we vote on the recommendations of the policy committee?
I'm happy to jump in here. I'm not familiar with, I think policy committee might be the platform committee. The platform committee met on July 16th. They recommended their report to the convention, and that report will be voted on at the in-person convention itself.
Thank you. Next question.
Chair, I see Mark Burton.
You are recognized.
Thank you all so much to the governor, to the bishop, and to the leaders of this committee. This is a comment to everyone here, but also to those watching on the internet live, because I've been getting messages from people in my Florida delegation. And it's only to point out that I am firmly in favor of the plan put forth by this committee, as should Democrats who are watching right now. In the last few days, this committee was the source of a lot of news reporting and speculation, but has turned a very difficult situation into something that is completely well thought through in the hardest of circumstances. And while we may have designed it differently from day one, if we'd known how everything would play out, that's not the way life works. I would encourage every person to vote in favor of this and every Democrat watching to support it. And thank you all very much for your service.
Thank you for the comments. Next question.
Chair, I see Jacob Asoki.
You are recognized.
Thank you again, Governor Walz and Bishop Daughtry. I was just wondering quickly, one concern that members of the Democrats Abroad delegation have had as it relates to other government websites and things like that is that some government websites or other websites are geo-blocked and can't be accessed from outside of the United States. And I just want to put that on the tech team's radar to make sure that the Democrats Abroad delegates who will be voting from outside of the United States can vote on that. And that being said, also Democrats Abroad have people in time zones all over the world, and we would appreciate as much notice as humanly possible in order to accommodate for our delegates that were in different time zones.
All important points. So noted. Next question.
Chair, I see Tana Sen.
You are recognized.
Thanks. Thanks, everybody. This is very exciting to be moving forward with this. Really thrilled and excited for convention and for this vote. Following up on one of the other questions about the platform committee, are there ways or rules to amend the platform committee at convention, or similar to our voting before convention? Is it more of a formality adopting the platform, or are there ways that amendments or resolutions, additional ones, could be made?
I'm happy to take that question. We worked with the platform committee as well, and I apologize for any background noise out there as well. My apologies. But the platform committee did meet on July 16th. There were no minority reports. There were a number of amendments. And so we're looking forward to the approval of all delegates of the platform at the convention itself.
Thank you very much. I see we have two left. We're gonna hear from Tim, who's had his hand up, and then we get the honor of hearing from the Commissioner Solis to wrap us up. So, Tim, go ahead.
Thank you, chairs. On today's call, we've heard a lot of Ohio, 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 and thought I'd add some Buckeye flavor on the ground here. In that, as a Democrat in Ohio, I know firsthand that we can't trust Republicans. They will wreak havoc if we don't have this virtual roll call vote. And I'll be real brief. Our governor, who is a Republican, and Ohio Democrat legislatures tried to fix this August 7th issue by governor calling the state legislature back for a special session to fix it. Well, they didn't fix it. What they did is they passed a law without an emergency clause attached to it. So basically that August 7th deadline is still in effect. So the September fix, which was in that legislation, without that emergency clause, there was not enough Republican vote supports to add that emergency clause. So that opens the door for havoc here. And as we've heard time and time again, litigation and whatnot. So I thought it was important to close and just hear from the ground here in Ohio. And thank you for everybody's work on the committee.
Thank you, Tim. Important context. Now we have the privilege of hearing our final question. Secretary Solis, you're recognized.
Yes, thank you. And it's good to see you, Governor. We served as colleagues in the House. One of the best, finest moments I had being a congressional member, but also serving as secretary for Barack Obama in the Labor Department. But now, happy to be back with the party and a part of the Platform Committee and the Rules Committee. Want to commend you, Bishop, and everybody on staff. And we understand what the rules before us are. And I'm excited to see that we are going in a good direction here. And want to also just say how blessed we are to have our nominee coming from the state of California. All of our delegates here took a vote already, and we unanimously support our nominee. So I just wanted to say that, and looking forward to being there at the convention. And also thank you for the opportunity to serve on this committee, but also the Platform Committee, which I believe is really going to help just create excitement for the entire country and, of course, our party, and bring people together from other parts of the country, independents and maybe even some better moderate Republicans. As I recall, there used to be so many. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be with you today.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. It was a privilege to serve alongside you in Congress. This concludes our open, transparent, and vibrant discussion on the rules, and I will now move for a vote. The vote you'll be casting is on the proposed rules as amended by the chair's amendment. Voting is now open. A 30-second warning will be given. Please cast your votes. Thirty seconds till the voting. Great. Well done. Amazing. Amazing. Very good. Voting is now closed. The rules as amended by the chairs are adopted. Bishop Daughtry, I turn to you. My work is done here.
Thank you, Governor, and thanks to all of you. It's great to have had so many questions, so many really good questions, and I hope that we were able to address all of your concerns. Before we move on to the consideration of proposals, I just want to remind you of the timeline that we've established in consultation with the chair of the DNC and the chair of the DNCC. So the rules have now been adopted. Candidates will have a window to declare their intent to pursue the nomination. That window will open on Thursday, that's tomorrow, July 25th, and it will close on Saturday, July 27th at 6:00 p.m. Eastern Time. That is their window to let us know that they intend to run, that they are declaring their candidacy. After they have filed the requisite forms with the Secretary's office, they will then have a window to qualify to be considered. And that involves them getting the 300 signatures that they need. And that window for them to collect their signatures will end on Tuesday, July 30th. That is for the 300. And I want to make a distinction. That is different from the virtual voting that will happen beginning August 1st. So they have a window to declare their intent from Thursday, July 25th to Saturday, July 27th. And then the window begins for them to gather their signatures, and the signature window will end on Tuesday, July 30th. Okay, so now let's begin our consideration of proposals submitted by Rules Committee members. Pursuant to our rules of procedure, the process to consider and debate these proposals provides that one of the co-chairs will recognize a member to offer their proposal. After the proposal is offered, we will recognize additional speakers. After discussion, we will move to a vote. Pursuant to the convention rules we just adopted and the amended call, any other proposals approved by this committee will go to the convention for consideration.
The chair will now recognize Arturo Rodriguez to offer proposal number 1, which is available on your voting homepage. You are recognized.
Thank you very much, Governor Walz, and also Bishop Daughtry. And I particularly also want to emphasize the staff because they have been excellent at providing us with information and assistance in every particular way. So today, in the spirit of all the discussions we've already had today, we want to continue by discussing the unity resolution. It's a pleasure to do this in conjunction with a good friend of mine, Larry Cohen. Larry, who I've known for many years now, is one that has always fought for ensuring the highest degree of participation, whether it's been in the labor movement or in his political work. So thank you, Larry, for all that you do. The resolution, we are calling this resolution the Rules Committee Unity Resolution, and it's strongly supported by the Harris Campaign and the Democratic National Committee. It further strengthens the reforms adopted by the Democratic Party at the 2016 elections. In 2020, the Democratic National Committee adopted a similar resolution, and it passed overwhelmingly. Both the Biden and Sanders campaigns supported that resolution at that time. The resolution guarantees that substantial steps are made to ensure the Democratic presidential nominating process is more accessible, transparent, and inclusive. This makes our party stronger as we strive to build a massive grassroots campaign. These reforms helped position our nominee Joe Biden to beat Donald Trump in 2020, and they will provide us with the framework to do the same again in 2024. So let me share with you some of the highlights of this resolution. First of all, primary encouragement. The resolution stresses the importance of encouraging primaries in all states, maximizing the number of people participating in those primaries. Secondly, accessible improvements. Absentee voting will be utilized in states with caucuses so shift workers, overseas military personnel, and people with disabilities can join in voting. Thirdly, it expands opportunities. It expands same-day voter and party registration opportunities, opening doors to unaffiliated voters. And lastly, pledged delegates decide, which was discussed a little bit earlier. Automatic delegates can only vote on the first convention ballot if a candidate has secured enough pledged delegates to guarantee their nomination. As a result of these improvements, many states already have moved from a caucus system to conducting more inclusive primaries. We have stronger voter participation levels in presidential primaries. More Democratic voices are being heard, and we have increased voter confidence in our nominating system. The passage of this resolution, my fellow members, is critical to increasing the strength and durability of our democracy. We ask for your support of this Rules Committee Unity Resolution to continue expanding voting to every American. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez. At this time, the chair would recognize State Representative Syra Draper to second the proposed motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's with great enthusiasm that I second the motion.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? Please use the raised hand feature and staff will help recognize.
Chair, seeing Dan Thomas Cummins.
Dan, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I forgot to say earlier, it's good to see you, Governor, from Minnesota here. So I agree with the sentiments of the resolution that are being proposed here. I wonder if it could possibly be strengthened, and perhaps someone can answer the question who is responsible for drafting it. Whether at this point it would be prudent to consider a full-blown charter amendment. I think this is a good change that we have implemented over the past few cycles and should be made more or less permanent in the party. This is essentially, it amounts to a friendly suggestion. It does say shall maintain, but I will note, I was just reading an article the other day about how the definition of shall can sometimes be considered suggestive and not requiring, not mandatory. So I guess I wonder if there is a view toward implementing a potential charter amendment to make these reforms permanent, and perhaps someone can answer that question.
Thank you, Dan. Mr. Rodriguez, would you like to address the suggestion?
I'm certainly in support of it. I don't know what the attorneys would say. I would think that all the discussion really reflects that this is our intention. We want to have an increased voter participation. We want to see voters in every possible way be included. We are not the party of exclusion. We are the party of inclusion. And so I think that it's a good suggestion. Again, I would call on our attorneys to make sure that we can do this legally and not be challenged by the other opponents.
Thank you. Veronica?
Sure. I am not an attorney. I do party affairs though, and so I will try to talk about it from a party perspective. This was submitted as a proposal, so that's what's on the table at this point. It was not submitted as a charter amendment. If you would like it to be a charter amendment, there is a separate process for that. I'm happy to walk through that with you afterwards. But as of now, on the table, it is just a proposal. It is a proposal for your consideration, and for it to be a charter amendment, it would have had to be submitted as such before the deadline. And so I'm happy to talk to you all at a later date about that process more fully.
Thank you. I'm going to turn back to Dan. We have two other hands up. We'll answer those questions. Dan, you heard the response on that. Go ahead. You're recognized.
Was it this Dan, or were you going back?
Apologize. Our questioner in the beginning, and then Dan Stanton will come to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I suppose I would simply ask a question about how one could possibly make an amendment to this resolution, not to propose a charter amendment at this time, but to instruct the Rules and Bylaws Committee to prepare and propose a charter amendment in its normal course of business as a part of this resolution. How would that be possible in this process today?
Veronica, I will turn back to you.
Sure, and I am conferring with our parliamentarian here because that's a little bit of an interesting pathway. One moment, please. Major. We're going to turn it over to Helen really quickly if production can help get her camera on.
I think they have. Mr. Thomas Cummins, the charter amendments require a full set of notice and a full set of things that happen before that charter amendment get to you to be voted on. And those things have not yet been done. You cannot convert, as a old friend of mine who used to be the parliamentarian of the Democratic Party says, you cannot convert a lamb into a lion at the last moment. It is not fair. It is not appropriate. And you simply cannot be permitted to do that. You would be converting a lamb to a lion.
I think in the purpose of good discussion here, I see the hands up and they're in order. Sherwood's up, Dan, the other Dan Stanton, Carissa's up. But Dan, Thomas Cummins, I go back to you. Are you okay with us moving forward on this one, and then you can pursue the charter amendment?
I guess I'm still confused, and I'll let it go for now. If somebody wants to, just a generic amendment, if somebody wanted to move an amendment to the language of this resolution, how is that done? Just so that if something comes up later that's out of order, we can deal with it then. But just how is a proposed amendment to this resolution handled at this time?
Madam Parliamentarian, that may be back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The rules you adopted when we started required amendments to be proposed yesterday in writing.
Dan, as we're looking at this, we think about, I'm going to move on and take the rest of the questions, but we will circle back to make sure before we cast a vote. I think I said, Dan Stanton, you're next.
Thanks very much, Chair Waltz. I would wonder, maybe this is a point of parliamentary inquiry, but I understand that the Standing Rules Committee of the Convention can pass charter amendments for adoption by the full DNC. As this past week, we've demonstrated that last Friday we were able to adjourn and the chair was able to make amendments. We've created several rules. This committee seems to have capacity for work between now and the convention. Would it be appropriate to move to commit to a subcommittee of this committee to be able to create a charter amendment, to be able to fulfill all the necessary notice requirements, and to be able to pass this charter amendment at this historic convention with the representation that we have from all 50 states? It seems really appropriate to be able to take on this work.
Madam Parliamentarian, I'm not sure if that's you or if that is a different discussion for the chair of the convention. Bishop, if you got any advice on this one?
I do not have my charter and what various documents in front of me. So Veronica, I have to defer because I'm sure you've got the whole library there on how charter amendments are proposed and what that process looks like.
The parliamentary point at this point is whether or not we can recognize the motion to recommit. The rules appear to say you can't make any motions other than the motions that are described in these rules. And the motion to recommit is not listed in those rules and therefore would not be in order in this committee.
Thank you, Madam Parliamentarian. Dan, is that satisfactory? I'm going to go to Sherwood next, and we're still going to circle back before we do a vote. Hearing none, Sherwood, you're recognized.
Okay, well, thank you, and I may be getting the solution. Thank you. I'm here from Western Massachusetts and strong supporter of the Boston Red Sox. And I'll tell you right now, the vice president's coming out to Pittsfield, Massachusetts, and the Berkshires on Saturday. We're happy. I don't know. I can't find the unity resolution proposal language on the webpage. I'm sorry. I just under what category is it, Governor? I'd appreciate knowing so I can just read.
Staff, can you see what he's saying? Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, sir. This is Veronica, and hi, Sherwood. It is on your member homepage, but it was also sent to you in the email, the meeting reminder before this. I can go ahead and bump it for you right now as well.
I think Sherwood is muted. Sherwood, anything further? All right. I think I recognize Carissa is next. You are recognized.
Okay. Hi, rules nerd here again. All right. So I was a delegate in 2016 when this originally started. and this, I agree, it came out of the Bernie Sanders Clinton group. And in the time between 2016 and now, a lot of these things have been implemented and have become part of the delegate selection rules. A lot of states have implemented these things. For instance, Nevada went from a caucus system to a presidential primary. I don't think there may be even a couple of states that are left that have caucuses. We've gone to same-day voting registration, a lot of this. So I think that this resolution that we're being asked to vote on is already being done. This is just affirming the work that is being done. And if you go and look, and I did pull up the DNC charter and bylaws, I've got it sitting over here on the side. And to amend our charter and our bylaws, it's pretty specific in our charter and bylaws on how it is done. It does require 30 days, and especially to amend the charter, it can be voted on at the convention, but then has to be reaffirmed by the entire Democratic National Committee. There's all kinds of rules for how it has to be done. So it's not something we can just kind of do on the fly, y'all. Sorry, it's rules nerd here time, sorry. And so I understand what some of you want to do, but this is just kind of like, hey, this is feel good. Let's keep this up. Let's keep doing this. I think that's what this resolution is trying to do. And I'm all for, I think we should approve this and get this in front of our delegates to approve it and keep this work moving forward, because I think we have been doing this work. Bishop Daughtry will know that the rules and bylaws have implemented so much of what the Unity Commission did and has done. I am, having lived in Nevada and have gone through so much of this and seen the delegate selection plans as they have evolved over time since 2016, I will affirm that the work that the Unity Commission has been doing has been happening and it has happened all across the country. So I'm in full support of this resolution, but to try and throw together a charter amendment at this late date when we have so much other to do, I think would be hard for us to pull off as a committee. That's just my 2 cents. Thank you.
No, thank you. Well noted. Frank, we'll go to you.
Oops. Oh, hi. Hello. Okay, sorry. Yeah. Thank you. Hi, Bishop. Frank Leone, member of the Rules and Bylaws Committee and member of this committee. I think there's 3 reasons why we really should just move on and not consider this a charter amendment at this time. First of all, this committee needs to finish its business and adopt the rules to nominate the next president of the United States. The work that's being done in an accelerated manner by this committee, by the staff, by the chairs, really is a priority, and to somehow continue the committee operations to consider a charter amendment at this point just doesn't make any sense. We need to focus on nominating our candidates. Secondly, I think as the parliamentarians made clear, charter amendment at this point is out of order. And third, it's not even clear what a charter amendment would say. The resolution talks about continuing to further accessibility, transparency, and inclusion in our party, and further democratizing reforms. Those are sort of general language that don't really go into a charter amendment. If there's specific language that we want to adopt, then I'm sure Rules and Bylaws Committee going forward would be happy to consider that language, and particularly in preparation for the 2028 delegate selection plans. But for now, I think we need to focus on adopting our rules and moving forward with our nomination. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Frank. Bishop Daughtry, I'm in agreement with Frank. I think these are very valid points, but I think where we're at and what we have to get done, I'm going to call it this time for us to do a vote on the proposal as it was originally written and provided. Bishop Daughtry, good with that? All right. So at this time, the proposal that's on is going as presented by Mr. Rodriguez, seconded by Representative Draper. The vote is now open. Use your homepage to cast your vote, and I will give a 30-second notice. 30 seconds left to vote. Voting is now closed. The resolution passed 141 to 11. The resolution is now adopted and will be referred to the full convention. Sentiments expressed in this discussion, I think, there's a lot of agreement around. I think there's just more work needs to be done. At this time, I'll turn it back to my co-chair, Bishop.
Thank you, Governor. We will now confirm the convention officers. We look forward to working with the nominee of the Democratic Party to complete the slate of officers, which may be designated by the permanent chair. But in order to call our convention to order and select that nominee, we will need a permanent chair and a convention secretary. I call on Stuart Applebaum to present the recommendations for a permanent chair and convention secretary. Mr. President.
Thank you, Bishop, and thank you, Governor. And good afternoon, everybody. I am absolutely delighted to make the motion to recommend Jason Ray as convention secretary and Minyon Moore as permanent chair of the 2024 Democratic National Convention. Secretary Jason Ray has done an extraordinary job leading the Democratic National Committee's Office of the Secretary, as it has coordinated our DNC meetings, certified delegations in all 57 states and territories, and helped our business flow smoothly. From his first election to the DNC at the age of 17, he has dedicated decades of service to our organization, and I know he will continue his important work as permanent convention secretary. And I couldn't be prouder to nominate Democratic National Convention Committee Chair Minyon Moore for permanent convention chair of this historic convention. Minyon, over the years, has held a variety of crucial roles in our party and in our government, including serving as CEO of the Democratic National Committee. As we all certainly know by now, Chair Moore and her team have been working nonstop for some time now to build a convention that will bring us together to energize, organize, and mobilize. We are fortunate to benefit from her extensive experience and visionary leadership. I couldn't be prouder to make these nominations. Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart. The senator has moved adoption of the slate. Stuart has moved adoption of the slate of nominated officers. The chair will now recognize Fadiwa Halma for a motion to second.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Chairman. It's my honor to second the motion.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? I will ask staff to advise the chair if a member has raised their hand.
Chair, I see Eleanor Sobel.
Yes, Eleanor, you are recognized.
What?
Eleanor, are you there?
Yes, I don't have a question.
Okay, okay.
I had a question from a previous time.
Okay, all right. If your question is not about this motion, we may come back to that at a later date, but let's close this particular thing out. So seeing no discussion, we will now move to a vote. Please vote using your voting homepage. If you're having trouble, please send a chat message to member support. The voting is now open. Members have 30 seconds. Voting will close in 30 seconds. The voting has closed and the motion has passed. Governor?
Thank you, Bishop. Our next item of business will be to ratify the in-person convention agenda that was also distributed yesterday, July 23rd, and is on the voting homepage. The agenda is for the in-person portion of the convention only and is designed to reflect the agenda as expressed to you in these rules, including adopting the platform of the Democratic Party, which was recommended to the full convention by the convention's platform committee on July 16th. Celebratory and ceremonial votes to recognize the presidential and vice presidential nominees of the Democratic Party, and a state-by-state roll call for the presidential nominee. The convention chair will recognize the new Democratic ticket for acceptance speeches, as well as leaders and representatives from throughout our strong and united Democratic Party. The chair will now entertain a motion to ratify the proposed convention agenda. The chair recognizes Alaska State Senator Tobin for the purpose of making a motion. You are recognized.
Thank you. Thank you, Governor Waltz and Bishop Daughtry. I move to adopt the proposed convention agenda.
Thank you, Senator. The chair now recognizes Kevin Liao for to second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I second the motion.
We now have a motion and a second. I would ask the staff to identify raised hands.
Chair, I see Dan Santon.
You are recognized.
Thank you, Chair. We just passed a resolution within this committee, and I was wondering if where in the agenda this resolution will be considered by the convention.
I will defer to the staff on this one.
Oh, apologies, we're just working on the mic there one last time. This will be near the committee reports. We tried to specify for the purpose of the agenda platform committee reports. As we mentioned, rules and credentials are adopted by your own. And so that is a great flag, and we'll be sure to add it to the committee reports section by the platform section.
Thank you. Any further hands up, staff?
Chair, I see Armando Teles.
You are recognized.
Hello, Chair, everyone, good afternoon. Point of clarification, should the platform committee pass or present any platform items that are contradictory to any international law or any inhumane policy or positions of the party, can we challenge the platform's recommendations on those bases?
Governor, I'll grab this.
Thank you.
If you don't mind. So, of course, the platform is not a matter of international law. It's a statement of values. As I mentioned earlier, a minority report was not passed or even brought to the platform committee. And so that's not a pathway. And as this isn't a legal document, we're not setting any laws, and it's not challengeable on those grounds. So, no.
Thank you. Any further questions?
Chair, I see Dan Santon again.
You are recognized.
Thank you, Chair. I'm wondering if it would be appropriate to move to amend the agenda to include the consideration of the resolution, whether it be a rules committee resolution or what the verbiage should be in between the acceptance speeches by the nominees for president, vice president, and the platform committee report.
Madam Parliamentarian?
You can certainly move the adoption of such an amendment, or based on the discussion, the staff could make it as a technical amendment.
Yeah, and oh, sorry about that. I will just add, as we discussed, that is the intention is to send this to convention. That is already specified in the rules themselves. And so we'll be sure to clarify this so that way all participants are aware and we make sure that they know that they have multiple items to be voting on. So thank you for that suggestion.
Any further questions before we vote?
Chair, I see Michaela Kelso.
You are recognized.
Thank you. I would like to add the reminder that our rules also ask for a credentials committee report, which is also currently not listed on the agenda. So please make sure that also gets added. Thank you very much.
So noted. Seeing no further discussion at this time, I would ask for folks to vote on the adoption of the convention agenda. Voting is now open. You'll be notified with a 30-second timer. Thirty seconds to complete votes. Voting is now closed. The proposal has passed 154-0. The 2024 convention agenda is adopted with direction to staff for technical corrections. Back to you, Bishop.
Thank you, Governor. Members, we have taken action on all of the business before us today. Congratulations. The chair will now entertain a motion to approve the report of this committee and authorize staff to make corrections as needed. The report of this committee is considered final, except for the approved resolution that will be distributed to delegates for their approval. The chair will now entertain a motion to adopt the report and recognizes Mayor Brian Kennedy for the purposes of making a motion.
Thank you, Bishop, and thank you, Governor. This has been a wonderful meeting. I've appreciated the wonderful conversations that have been had and the input from the members of the committee. It is my pleasure as a member of this committee to move approval of the Rules Committee report.
Thank you, Mayor. The chair recognizes Councilman Sean Abreu to second the motion.
Hey, Chair, I enthusiastically second the motion. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sean. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? I will ask staff to advise the chair if a member has raised their hand.
Chair, I see Joshua Trubin.
Yes, Joshua.
Thank you, Chair. I just have a point of information. What was the final result of the actual convention rules vote? Thank you.
Staff, can you share that total, please?
Yes, give me 1 second as I look it up here. Sorry, one moment. $157-3.
Thank you. Thank you. Other questions?
Chair, I see Cal Hobson.
Yes, Mr. Hobson, you are recognized.
Thank you very much. I don't want to
take much more of your time, except I was only added to this August body late Saturday night. And some interesting things happened since then. I did 28 years in the Oklahoma legislature, and the one thing I learned, finally, was the smartest thing I could ever do was to listen to staff. I am so impressed, Governor and chairs, with your staff you have, their wisdom, everybody's calmness, and focus on what is important. I come from a red state. I now can go back to my state, our delegates, and tell them they're in good hands in Chicago. Thank you for letting me speak up. Go forth. We're going to win November the 5th. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hobson. Is there any additional hands?
Chair, seeing none.
Okay, seeing no further hands, we will now move to a vote. Please vote using the home page. If you're having trouble, send a chat message to member support.
One.
30-second warning. You have 30 seconds to cast your vote. The proposal has passed. I'll ask staff to share the tally, please, with the members.
They are still just fine. Oftentimes a little bit of a lag between the back end, but we are looking at 153-1.
Thank you, 153-1. Members, we have concluded the business scheduled for our meeting today. And before I go to Governor Walz for closing comments, are there any additional questions? Seeing none, Governor, over to you.
Well, thank you, Bishop. And to each and every member on here, I could not be prouder than to be with you, folks who are here to protect the democracy. Our country's experiencing an unprecedented moment, as we all know, one that needs strong leadership, decisive action, and a fair path forward. The committee here today exhibited all those qualities, and I couldn't be more proud. As co-chair, I'm determined that there be an open and transparent process with the American people. We will move fast to deliver a nominee that represents our values and has the experience to effectively execute our party's agenda. We look forward to supporting the eventual nominee throughout their campaign and celebrating that nomination in Chicago and a victory in November. I look forward to seeing all of you in Chicago in just a few weeks and am grateful for your work. To my co-chair, thank you so very much. Bishop Daughtry, back to you.
Thank you, Governor Walz, and echoing all of the governor's sentiments, I am incredibly proud of what we together have accomplished in so short a period of time. We are so grateful to have had your voices, your ideas, and your values guiding us through this moment. When our eventual nominee wins in November, please know that you will have played no small role in that victory. You are critical in ensuring that our nomination process is effective and that our convention is a success. And of course, I can't wait to celebrate with you in Chicago. We have some difficult days ahead. This is not going to be easy, but I know that our party is in good hands if your participation is any indication. So let's lace up, soldier up, let's get going. We've got a contest to win in November for the saving of our democracy. It's our responsibility, it's on our shoulders to do everything we can so that on November 6th, we have no regrets. We got work to do for ourselves, for our children, for our community, for our nation. Let's go win this election and make the promise of America the practice of America. God bless you all. We'll see you in Chicago. And with that, the meeting is adjourned. God bless you.